The Davis family was excited for their weekend camping trip. It was a rare chance for Tom and Jane to escape the stress of work, and for their kids, 13-year-old Emily and 11-year-old Michael, to experience the adventure of the great outdoors. They had chosen Whispering Pines, a remote area known for its stunning landscapes and peaceful solitude. The drive took several hours, winding through increasingly dense forests until they reached the trailhead. The air was crisp and fresh, filled with the scent of pine. Emily and Michael were already buzzing with excitement as they unloaded their backpacks and set off down the narrow trail. "Stay close," everyone Tom called, leading the way with a map in hand. Jane followed behind, keeping an eye on the children as they darted ahead, eager to explore. The path meandered through towering trees, their branches knitting together to form a canopy overhead. Sunlight filtered through in scattered beams, creating patterns on the forest floor. As they walked, the family chatted and laughed, their voices the only sound apart from the rustling leaves and occasional bird calls. After a couple of hours, they reached their campsite, a picturesque clearing by a small, crystal-clear lake. The water shimmered in the afternoon sun, and the surrounding pines whispered softly in the breeze. The family set up their tent and built a campfire, enjoying the sense of isolation and tranquility. As evening descended, they sat around the fire, roasting marshmallows and telling stories. Tom spun a tale about the legend of Whispering Pines, a story he had read online about a lost traveler who vanished in these woods, lured away by mysterious voices. "They say he never found his way back," Tom concluded, trying to sound spooky. "Dad, that's not true," right? Michael asked, glancing nervously at the darkening forest. Jane laughed. "It's just a story, sweetheart. Don't let your dad scare you." But Emily was intrigued. What if it is true? Maybe there are spirits here trying to communicate. Tom shrugged, amused by his daughter's curiosity. "Well, let's hope they don't bother us tonight." They turned in for the night, settling into their sleeping bags. The tent was cozy, and the rhythmic chirping of crickets soon lulled them to sleep. Sometime later, Emily awoke. At first, she didn't know what had disturbed her slumber. Then she heard it, a soft whispering, barely audible but persistent. She sat up, straining to hear more clearly. "Emily," the voice called, faint yet distinct. She shivered, goosebumps prickling her skin. It was as if the trees themselves were speaking, their voices carried on the wind. She glanced around, but her family was still asleep. Compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, Emily quietly unzipped the tent and slipped outside. The moon bathed the forest in an eerie glow, casting long shadows across the ground. The whispering continued, guiding her toward the edge of the campsite. "Emily," the voice beckoned, more insistent now. Despite her fear, Emily felt drawn to the voice. She took a tentative step into the woods, then another, moving deeper into the darkness. Meanwhile, Michael stirred awake, sensing his sister's absence. He blinked in confusion, then noticed the open tent flap. Panic surged through him as he crawled out, his eyes scanning the moonlit clearing. "Emily," he called, his voice trembling. Tom and Jane awoke to their son's cries. Realizing Emily was missing, they hurried out of the tent, fear gripping their hearts. "Emily!" Jane shouted, her voice echoing through the forest. Tom grabbed a flashlight and swept its beam across the trees. "We have to find her," he said, his voice taut with urgency. Together, the family plunged into the woods, calling Emily's name. The whispering grew louder, echoing around them, as if the forest itself was alive. The trees seemed to close in, their branches clawing at the night sky. As Emily ventured deeper into the forest, she found herself in a clearing, the air cold and still. In the center stood an ancient stone well, its surface covered in moss. The whispers emanated from within, weaving a haunting melody that tugged at her mind. "Join us," the voices sang, their tone both inviting and ominous. Emily hesitated, her heart pounding. She felt a strange pull toward the well, as if invisible hands were urging her forward. But deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. Back in the forest, Tom, Jane, and Michael stumbled through the underbrush, the flashlight's beam flickering wildly. The whispers surrounded them, a cacophony of voices overlapping and echoing. "Emily!" Tom called again. desperation creeping into his voice. Then, through the trees, they spotted her a solitary figure standing by the well, her silhouette outlined by moonlight. Emily Jane cried, rushing forward. Emily turned, her eyes wide with fear. "Mom, Dad," the voices. "They want me to stay." Tom reached her first, pulling her away from the well. "It's okay, Emily. We're here now." The whispers intensified, swirling around them like a storm. The air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to stretch and writhe, reaching out with ghostly fingers. Jane took Emily's hand, her grip firm and reassuring. "We have to get out of here," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Michael clung to his sister's side, and together, the family retreated, fighting against the pull of the whispers. The forest seemed to resist their escape, branches snagging their clothes and roots threatening to trip them. But Tom led the way, guiding his family through the darkness, his determination unwavering. The whispers faded with each step, replaced by the sound of their own labored breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot. At last, they emerged from the woods, back at their campsite. The air felt warmer here, the oppressive presence of the forest lifting like a heavy fog. Gasping for breath, they collapsed onto the ground, relief washing over them. Emily clung to her mother, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't mean to leave." "It's okay," Honey Jane murmured, holding her close. "You're safe now." Tom glanced back at the forest, its shadows retreating in the early light of dawn. Whatever haunted those woods, they had escaped its grasp. But he knew they couldn't stay another night. "Let's pack up and head home," he said, his voice firm. The family quickly gathered their belongings, eager to leave Whispering Pines behind. As they drove away, the sun rose higher in the sky, its warm rays banishing the last remnants of night. Though they were safe, the memory of the whispers lingered, a chilling reminder of the secrets hidden within the forest. Emily knew she would never forget that night, and the way the darkness had almost claimed her. But she also knew that her family's love had brought her back, breaking the spell that had threatened to consume her. As they left the forest behind, she felt a sense of gratitude and relief, knowing they had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger.